pleasure, opportunity as always, folks. Again, my name is Bill Johns. Most people know me as the Hawaiian shirt guy. I can spend 15 hours telling you why I wear Hawaiian shirts. You'll have to read the book after my daughter graduates and a couple other things. So, but this is my newest one. I do have over 200 or maybe 300 across about, I don't know, 3 states right now, a lot in storage. And my wife got me this one yesterday, so it may have little wrinkles in there. So that kind of explains that. I want to recognize my great wife, Margaret, back there, and my daughter, and also Peter here. Peter is one of my other, you'll see on here, I've had about 1,000 other kids here in the community. And how long you been with me now, Peter? 10 years? And you always start off doing what? In the yard, staking tomatoes. Well, that's one of the proud moments I have is mentoring young people. And my very first young guy is actually 38 years old. He's a dentist living in Village Green with 3 kids. And that is a guy who started with us in 2001. Before I go in there, I do want to make a comment. I'm going to pass this around. Most of you know me publicly in community events, but I'm actually a very private person. But I lost one of my best friends, Paul Neese, suddenly. Paul was a member of this club for years before he went off to military service. And I'm going to pass this around. But there's this little line in here because Paul is an exceptional conservative, warrior, family man. And I met him when I was president of my homeowners association, and he got involved in our community with this club. But it talks about here going off to Afghanistan, winning a bronze, well, not winning, being honored with the Bronze Star for leadership, expertise, and selfless devotion to duty, enhanced tactical readiness, and mission accomplishment. That's what's listed in there. So let me tell you what he did. Paul was embedded with Navy SEALs doing signal intelligence and also human intelligence for high-value targets. And he was deployed to Afghanistan several times, Libya, and also Poland. And a true warrior and friend, a great Republican. I'd like to pass that around. So with that being said, I also want to talk about 2 other things on this. Although I developed a website many years ago and I am a Silicon Valley veteran, I just completely suck at things right now when it comes to technology. So Brian, that's why I'm delayed and not coming and visiting you.
You're all right.
But at the same time, with that being, when most people look me up, I'm off grid. I mean, I have like an old website, 20 years up there, talks on the supply chain guy. That's not what I do. But we'll explain a little more about that. But I promise you I will have probably a real website up. Right along for 1970 Governor Reagan re-election campaign. I hear this once a year from my mother because when I was born in California in 1970, I burned her campaign for governor's re-election. I was born in Los Angeles, she was working on the campaign. Apparently I came too early. I told her that was my father's fault and also the U.S. Department of Defense for having been at the right place at the wrong time. Reagan official stamp licker for Shelby County Republican Party was Reagan 1980. Let me tell you about how my grandmother bribed me. You know, in Christmas Story, there's soap poisoning. I had postal stamp poisoning. For every 100 of these I licked, I got a button. I ended up with 100 of these buttons, and that's why I'm probably going to die one day. So I know a lot of people collect these. I've given them away. Brian, that one's for you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So with that being said, let's talk about a couple other things briefly. I want to read you something from a campaign, my campaign. In the near future, Farragut will be facing many challenges in the areas of growth, planning, and safety. We need to focus our efforts around addressing these challenges, enabling Farragut to become the place we spend our leisure time, the destination we choose to raise our families or retire in comfort in the community we are fortunate to call home. We can achieve these goals and make immediate progress by strengthening relationship with merchants, i.e. business, offering support to homeowners associations, and developing a long-range plan that recognizes the impact that developments in neighboring areas are likely to have on Farragut, especially on transportation matters. Part 2. Yeah. Make Kingston Pikes Business District visual appealing. Term limits, making sure that we have experience in city planning, traffic safety, and apply a code of ethics to the town. And it's time for new leadership, showing And I appreciate the current board of Mayor of Albany starting to clean up Kingston Pike a little. It still looks like Summer Avenue. If you follow this all the way, get you to Memphis, it looks like Summer Avenue. And also safety. Don't we wish we could go back in time 18 years ago when I wrote this, when I ran for mayor the first time? Transportation is here, growth is here. My specialty, and I'm bouncing around the place because I do not read from prepared statements or anything like that. I just tell it how it is. My wife and I came here by choice. If you've ever seen the movie Forrest Gump, The Right Stuff, The Wolf of Wall Street, Animal House, and a couple other things and signs, you kind of get an idea of how my life was. In 1992, when I met my wife, we're celebrating 30 years this year. A year later, I had a catastrophic workplace injury. I was told I shouldn't ever walk again. And so what did I do? I guess I better start studying in school. Finish up my undergraduate degree in political science, criminal justice, counterterrorism. We took forensic sciences with Hugh Berryman, one of Dr. Bill Bassett's first students. So that was kind of cool. Let me tell you, riding around the police cars in Memphis with the cops film crews in the 90s when crack and gangs are there, it just says, maybe I should become a police officer. So I went to graduate school, master's in public administration degree. Then I went to, being in Memphis and being a warehouse worker, told me about UT. UT, #1 MBA program in the world. I was one of 10 students. And my Forrest Gump life began because I was they're right now, though, that's the largest major at the University of Tennessee. But back in 1996, there was very few students. And that is when Y2K, e-business, supply chain management technology came on. If you have ever received a box to your dock door or your front door, there's a nanoparticle of my DNA in that because I wrote part of the algorithms and sold them. If you have ever received something with a semiconductor chip in it, well, I know that very well. You ever see the car from General Motors? Same thing. So the point being is, we came here for a specific reason. This is the best place to live in the world. I live in Fort West. We found the perfect place because of my involvement with Tennessee Municipal League. I knew Dan Olson. He came out and bought it, and I have a compound. It is like the very last house in the Town of Farragut. It's the one with 5 tiki bars, and my daughter's Jeep projects with one painted with dinosaurs on it, and lots of high school kids running around digging dirt, and I take all the credit. So that is our house and store. The reason I'm running for mayor was because of this club right here. 3 months ago, in March, somebody told me about they're going to put surveillance cameras in the parks. So I went to that meeting, and this Tammy Cheek and I were the only ones in there. It was their strategic planning session, this document. And because it was not being televised or any, being transparent from a citizen participation perspective, I decided to stay. Luckily, I had some of Leilani's, I guess, not candy bars, breakfast bars in there. So Tammy and I spent 7.5 hours. And this strategic plan, I can tell you, for somebody who has an MBA in strategic planning, this is not a strategic plan at all. The other issue was it didn't even cover anything about citizen involvement and participation. The only mention in this was from a consultant who had a sheet in there. Nothing about emergency preparedness and disaster. I had talked to you right before Ukraine was going to happen. I've given you a hint about the baby formula. I'm going to give you another hint now because the supply chain people, we know what's going on because we deal with oil and everything. We're about to face the biggest economic supply chain political system meltdown that we're ever going to face. We need to prepare now. We're going to have more crime. On Old Stage, we clean up Old Stage Road, part of my daughter's adoptive highway or adoptive mile program. And this was the first time that we found drug paraphernalia. And we don't clean it once a quarter because it's so dirty. We clean it once a month. And I informed the town of Farragut of that. Over the past month, I have actively engaged these quote-unquote homeless people in our community. Most of them are not homeless. They're vagrants. This is the stuff that we escaped, my family, from Memphis and other towns. We're going to eventually have a rise in crime because that parallels what we see in economic development downturns, and especially when gas goes over $5 an hour. Better be prepared for over $6 an hour. So, Ron Williams, I like Ron. I spent a lot of time with him, but it was after this meeting, nobody ever called me after investing 8 hours. Bill, what do you think with your background about our community? Nobody. Not the staff, not the town. So I ended up, unfortunately, that same evening, I came and talked to Margaret about, hey, this is where I was for 7.5 hours. But we had an emergency because Margaret's mother, who was in long-term care, had a stroke. And within a week, she passed away, and that put us back in my hometown of Germantown. Germantown is one of the best laid out planned communities in the southeast United States. And I am lucky enough to be mentored there, worked there, and it opened up my whole life. Because the town administrator and this town assistant administrator told me to go get an MPA versus being a police officer. And I did that, and it opened up a whole world for me. And it was so interesting, 17 years ago, when I was telling people about this, they didn't believe me. And the guy who I was running for reached out to the mayor of Germantown, said, some guy said he's from Germantown, and I just kind of don't believe what he did. And so if anybody wants to see the mayors of Germantown's response to my opponent 17 years ago, exactly what I did in Germantown, planning, transportation management, growth, let me tell you, you dig up a skunk that has been run over 1,000 times in Memphis humidity in August, let me tell you, you get a new perspective on county workers and city workers. You also learn a lot from the wonderful worlds of climbing water towers. So I'm exceeding my time, so let me just put it this way to wrap this up. I assume I should exceed my time. Close to it. So after visiting Germantown and thinking about this, and visiting all my old friends, we came back and I read Sean Murphy's letter to the editor he wrote, and it was good, and it wasn't some parts I disagreed. Sean is an interesting character, and just like I am, and that's what makes our community wonderful. But how he was treated on the March 24th Board of Mayor of Alderman meeting, that was shocking to a lot of people in our community, especially for those who we expect to have to deal with stuff in elected office. And that was kind of like the point then. I said, because my daughter wants to live in this community, we're going to make the investment again. And it all happened because I walked into a planning session because there was no plan. And I can tell you, who thinks traffic's bad here now?
Yeah.
All right, so let me tell you, from somebody with a transportation background, supply chain management, who, Eli Goldratt, theory of constraints, godfather, and Ken Sharman, who trained me during my 4 steps, it's going to get a lot worse, and there's not a darn thing that happened. This Middle Farm project over here, with these apartments, when they start setting in, and all the other apartments, and the type of growth that is coming in our community, the world of theory of constraints doesn't work. There's 2 things. Gas going over $10 an hour, and then EMP. That'll take care of the problem, so don't throw away your bicycle yet. But that is the problems that we're facing, and it could have been prevented. It impacts our schools, it impacts everything. This community does not have an emergency preparedness plan. This community does not have a law enforcement plan, in my opinion, because it was never mentioned in here. And the word citizen from citizen participation, that has not been there. So my campaign, jumping in here, it has been short. And Varsity Jay will tell you I'm a fighter. We've agreed on things and disagreed. Brian and I have agreed on disagreed. But what's different about me in this community is I go by data. I go by logic, and I go by professional standards. And I don't know what it looks like now, but your city, by me having an accredited master's in public administration degree, I can pretty much run anything in the government side. I can tell you on the MBA, I can do the same. And in 1998, as a 27-year-old, the American Management Association, along with the American Society of Public Administration, determined I was probably one of the few people in the country in 1998 to actually have both accredited degrees here. So the good news is, this is one of the best places in the United States, especially the southeast United States, to live. We have water, we have transportation, we have grocery stores, we have 4 seasons. And that's why when I was over the 16 counties here in economic development, I got involved in designing what the future is going to look like here. And when it comes down to business in our community, my daughter and I, we have sat down and we've been into some of the new launches. I wrote the very first comprehensive strategic plan when I was on the Farragut Economic Development Committee with Nancy Howard, and we took an approach that was collaborative to really make the town of Farragut a great place to address these issues. And they did not follow it. They actually went a different direction. Right now we have 4 logos representing the town of Farragut in our business. 4 logos. We have people who are doing great. Steve is doing great on the festival stuff. He has experience on that, but as a, what we call a force multiplier, to do branding management, to do tourism, economic development, that's one thing. Lastly on that, the town is investing money in tourism, town of Farragut. Who here thinks tourism is going to happen in the town of Farragut? We're going to see license plates in front of us, grocery stores. They don't understand what they're doing, and I'm trying to help. So with that being said, talk to me. I'm very passionate, and I'll get you wearing Hawaiian shirts before you know it.